This is an image of the antenna galaxies. Oopsie. I'm gonna turn the screen flip off here. Okay. Anyways, what's going on here? Okay, I'm all right. Everything's okay. This video doesn't really have a point. It doesn't have a reason to exist. Why is it still flipping? I don't know. It's freaking me out. I'm gonna flip out soon enough. Okay. I know what happens here. Is that the? There we go. There's this little like widget that you use for screen recordings, and it was over top. It was overlaid the screen lock button. So I went to press it. It was a different button. Anyways, so I think that's a good example of how easily things get fucked up. Is a single error in misjudgment or an oversight, or an input. I don't really know what I'm trying to say here. It's 3:20 in the morning. I was trying to gather my thoughts and trying not to be an insomniac and stare at this blue light emitting device that is currently making me fat. So it was Victoria Day yesterday, and that was really nice. I'm sure all the working stiffs were having a grand old time. I woke up at 6 p.m. somewhere around. No, actually, I woke up a bit earlier today. I woke up 12 hours ago. It was like 3 something p.m. And to me, that's a problem. That's an issue that I'm dealing with, and I've tried to deal with all of my mental health issues without the intervention of psychiatric medications, because of these not only the temporary side effects of these medications, but the permanent ones. There's permanent side effects to all of this stuff, and not only that, they have documented issues with psychiatric medications or behavioral modification medications that are used in the instances of ADHD, ADD, and these other learning disabilities, that they have an affect that's AFFECT upon decision making ability, impulse control, and also fertility. So when you mix all those three things together, you start to see a lot of women on birth control and psychiatric medications who happen to have purple hair, a septum piercing, and a chest tattoo, which is clearly unhinged. It's like a warning sign. It's like, why would you do that? I personally, again, my memory association with tattoos has to do with the behavior, and like I can't turn this off, right? I can't stop the psychoanalysis or the sizing of people up, because that's how I've survived, and that's how humanity has survived, quite frankly. But it's just amped up to another level in some people, and where am I going with this? Well, again, the education, the information, and then the treatment is exactly the issues of our era in the post-internet epoch, and it's a galaxy. It's a galaxy full of information, right? Because like the human, as is below, as is above, right? As is the micro, so is the macro. The continual pattern of expansion. And you'll see this. You're looking at the Fibonacci sequence right here with the collision of these two galaxies, the antenna galaxies. And I painted this for that particular reason, is because once they collided, they um, never really separated, and that's a really mind blowing thing to think about. And these galaxies, these two galaxies, and these two antenna galaxies, they will eventually merge. And I'm not talking about a person or another person, even though it sounds like I am or I might be, at least in my mind. I feel like I'm talking about something because I have a personal connection to this image and the reasoning as to why I painted it. I gave it away. I put a little spaceman, an astronaut in the bottom right hand corner down here, somewhere around there, and then I gave it to a film director. I gave it to a film director with MS. Yo, there's nothing more gangster than that. I'm sure he figured it out a long time ago. There's a little bit of mystery going on here, just like the expansion of the universe. And I'm telling you, the world is a lot smaller than we think it is, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the information stream, okay. So get this. There's two things that popped up a few things that popped up into my mind as I'm laying here and I'm processing. In a wakeful rest, like micro naps, like a couple of seconds at a time. My brain is just dying for me to put this out there for whatever reason I am cursed with, and I just and I can't sleep until it's out there. That's what it is to be an artist. Is that there's this itch that you can't scratch unless you make something. And that is, to me, an expression of fertility. And that's why art is such an important thing within humanity, is because we feel this need to create, and we have all of these idiosyncratic uh, layers of bullshit between us and the great creation. So the flip side of this merge of the antenna galaxies is cellular division. It just blew your mind right now, um, because if you look at the antenna galaxies in all of their glory, right? They're in the middle of an expanse of emptiness, and there's millions of stars in different states of decay, and places in their lifespan between the star field in the nebulas in which stars form through compression, and eventually to either the supernova or the black hole. And you know where am I going with this? I don't know. I don't know. That's the beauty of it. I don't know. There's some mystery in this, and that's completely fine. I don't want to know everything, because the moment that I know everything, there'll be nothing left to discover. And that's the worst thing, because discovery inspires creativity. When we discover something within human comprehension, then the whole world is lit on fire with this magnetron of a laser. It just sends out this signal like a snap, right? The Thanos snap, and everything changes overnight. And especially so with the invention of the internet and the invention of gossip, quite frankly, whether you think it's a kind of security blanket or not, is entropy. Gossip is entropy. I just blew your mind right now. Okay, so as soon as these women with enough education to understand the expansion of the universe got into a position of power and started colliding with each other, they started spreading rumors across the internet and raging across the internet, quite frankly, to a point that for which we started having to put out legislation against misinformation. You think social media was invented for dudes? No, it wasn't. It was invented for um, is invented to connect universities between each other, and that's why we didn't want, or say that the universities didn't want an expansion of the internet, which is really strange, don't you think? Because it was their competition, and all of a sudden, then you have this the floodgates were open, and you had all these teachers were panicking. That was this my nose. Fuck my nose. I got to tell you, I'm really. That's a story for another time. It has nothing to do with cocaine. My deviated septum has nothing to do with cocaine. And if you didn't figure that out, you're a fucking idiot. Okay, moving on. Um, the thing is that okay, so you had all these vulnerable women in their early 20s, trying seeking approval and trying to differentiate each other from differentiate themselves not only from their background but also from each other, so as to be selected first by the richest and the most powerful uh, male children, because that's the way it was, and that's still kind of the way it is, um, within the school cohort. And um, there's a problem. There's a problem when a woman gets a hold of and graduates with a psychology degree. This is my opinion, and I said this to my friend. Yes, I do have friends. Thank you very much. That it is a woman with a psychology degree is most dangerous, especially a bachelor's degree, because she's smart enough to know how to use it, but she's not smart enough to understand the secondary consequences. So the blowback from the consequences. So obviously you have A plus B equals C, but then you also have a canceling out. So A plus B equals C minus D, and that equals zero. That's the interesting thing, right? Is that zero is not actually a nothingness. It is a representation of infinity. And some people just don't seem to understand that. It doesn't take a mathematics professor to understand that. So less than infinity and more than infinity, a quantifiable um, measurement, right, of something. Because if you expand it into something, into a larger understanding, at least from what I've tried to figure out over the years, is that eventually, um, it all comes back in this grand um, infinity loop, right? The zero is just the intersection of the negative and the positive. So again, this has to do with much larger concepts such as was it the second law of thermodynamics? Energy doesn't dissipate; it only changes form. Like this is not a these are not mind blowing things that I'm talking about here, but what a woman didn't seem to understand was that eventually the negativity that they spewed forth would come back and blindside them. It would come back to them. And it's interesting how, okay, so if you watch or you observe how people are talking, especially us millennials who have existed with enough of a life before the internet and enough of a life after the internet to comprehend the secondary consequences. But that's a general statement. That's not something that is a commonality amongst all people because of the differences in intelligence. And the most intelligent person is the one that latches on to the simple solutions. Not the final solutions, quite frankly, but the simple ones. That's not to say, and that's not an allusion to a simpleton, because a person that only follows orders puts themselves and everybody else at risk. And these conclusions that I'm coming to, it's like, okay, so there's a what's the conventional wisdom? Oh, there's a fine line between insanity and genius. Well, you're looking at it. Oh my lord, bless your heart. And there's the best tools in the hands of an immature person, and they'll destroy everything you ever made out of jealousy, spite, anger, whatever was motivating that person in that moment that they were having that tantrum. And sometimes the tantrum lasts for over 15 years. because because they were ignorant and they thought they could just make things go away, but they don't. Right, right. To think that the the things that we create, which means not only the physical things that we create, but the metaphysical or the intellectual things that we create. So the reasoning, the logic, what's it, the ethos, pathos, and logos. So the basis of every single argument or attempt to uh, understand something through the method and the procedure of logical deduction. But some people are incapable of doing this because they rely too much on secondary information, right? Secondhand information. They would rather go around kicking over other people's sandcastles and blaming it on the wind than actually taking accountability. Because if they took accountability, that would mean that they were a bully, and they were a bully for all of the wrong reasons. Because someone whispered in their head, whispered in their minds, it doesn't matter. Time is a flat circle. Nothing matters. It's all not all meaningless. The world ended in 2012, etc., etc., etc. Whatever lies that were told to that person. And there's been a lot of lies told to women in this revolution, or rather this establishment or this wave of of what their teachers really wanted, and then turning them all into useful idiots and soldiers for a cause, the cause Celebra. And if you look at the antenna galaxies here, one of them looks like a brain, right? If you think about it for a second here, so you have the brain, right, and then you have the fist, or it looks like a fist almost, to me. Maybe it looks like something different, but I see a brain in this. I see a cross section of a brain here, with the cerebellum back here, the outer layer, and then the inner layer. Or say the inner, the inner core of the brain, right? And you have the nerves that shoot out to the front and cross over each other from the center point, um, to the eyes, or something like that. Just using my imagination here a little bit, and imagine being a female doctor, and you're tasked with recuperating a disabled person that has a problem with public masturbation, and it's like compulsive. They're just whipping it out wherever. Or they're just just touching themselves no matter what. So they can't be taken in public until they stop doing it because it's distracting to everybody else. So what do? You put them on some drugs. But this has a cascade effect, and all of a sudden, the disabled person is oh, sorry for banging the phone there. The disabled person is having outbursts, behavioral outbursts in a different way, and you're like, oh shit! Now I'm plugging this hole and I'm plugging that hole, and the ship's still sinking. What do I do? What do I do? I can't fucking do this by myself. So then you start instituting a MAID program to put them all down, because well, that's an easier solution than actually treating them. Okay, so again, going forward with this thought exercise while I'm staring at the infinite brain of the antenna galaxies. Um, Okay, so okay, so next scenario is okay. So you're the same doctor, and you're tasked with recuperating or treating a gay pedophile. So what do? You dress them up in a costume. You give them some meds, and then you put them in front of children so that they're under watch, so that they're it's like this great charade or charade, you know, and then all of a sudden you have drag queen story time. See, the problems come from a lack of a disciplinarian or a strong person in willpower in willpower. This is the problem. This always was the problem, was dealing or trying to cure the impulsiveness or the tendency towards violence. But violence is retarded, right? It's retarded. A wise man uses his words, a fool uses his fists. But what's it? Where am I going with this? So there's people that value their intellectual capacity because they got bachelor's degrees, but they never really moved any inch forward from that. They rested on their laurels and their reputation and their service to other people and their general charisma. Their general attitude and then their charisma, so that they could establish themselves as a role model and control the culture or the society in order to bring these retards into public. This as soon as they learned about MK Ultra, they started or they attempted to program other people through the use of technology, if not through behavioral modification and then positive and negative reinforcements, and using their close, intimate partners as mice in a lab, as subject experiments, or say the subject of an experiment, a social experiment, and or a a scientific, quote unquote, or I would actually say a pseudoscientific experiment, having learned the basic concepts of human behavior from their time in university. Because if you think about it, MK Ultra was not necessarily for mind control. It was to recover soldiers from the Second World War, to bring them peace so that they could sleep at night. And this is the thing. This is why people love certain movies in which it's a giant government fuck up, right? Peace and love, yeah, really. I don't believe that for a second. Yeah, yeah, it's really fucked up. It's so fucked up. But the cure for all of this pseudoscience is a chain of evidence. The cure to gossip is verifiable sources and a consistent line of behavior that is irrefutable, right? Some people say that history is a story that we all agree upon, but I don't believe that for a second, um, because history has artifacts and people left things behind. It just didn't disappear because we wanted it to. We can rewrite history all we want, but eventually we'll figure it out. We'll see the world for what it actually is, and humanity for what it actually is, and all of these social movements for what they actually are, because they weren't intended to last. They were intended to be disruptive for the purposes of being disruptive, and that's evil, right? That's the chaos that I've spoken about in other videos. That is the chaos. Chaos, or trolling people for the purposes of doing it, is sabotaging other people or destroying civilizations for the purposes of doing it because you were enthusiastic to do it, and no one told you about the consequences, and you enlisted yourself as a soldier in someone else's war.